Heartwarming revelation, billionaire grandma discovers waitress wears her hidden wedding necklace. Ruth glanced out the window of her opulent mansion, its air heavy with silence. $1 billion view, yet it felt like a prison. Once, this was a life filled with laughter and family. Now all she saw were echoes, shadows of the past, reminders of a wealth that had distanced her from those she loved. Alone, she yearned for connection, for warmth, for the simple hospitality that came from community. And as the idea sprouted, something ignited within her. Today would be different. Today, she would leave the gilded cage and step into the small-town charm of her local diner. The diner buzzed with life. The smell of fresh coffee and homemade pie wrapped around her like a comforting hug. Laughter rang through the air, a stark contrast to her lonely existence. It was a world filled with togetherness. Ruth watched from a corner booth, a curious smile forming on her lips. Amidst the chatter, she caught sight of Mia, the young waitress with a radiant smile that brightened the dullest of days. Mia hustled between tables, balancing trays heavy with steaming plates, never breaking her stride or the sparkle in her eye. In that moment, Ruth felt an unfamiliar warmth seep into her chest. Then, as Mia reached across the counter, Ruth noticed the delicate necklace glimmering against her skin. Her breath hitched. It was her necklace, the one she thought lost after her tumultuous divorce years ago. Shock rippled through her. This simple piece, laden with memories, bound their lives in ways she could hardly comprehend. Ruth felt drawn to Mia, as if their worlds were colliding in a beautiful twist of fate. Determined to learn about this girl who wore a piece of her past, Ruth struck up a conversation. Over coffee, they exchanged stories, each revelation pulling Ruth deeper into Mia's world, a world burdened with hardship yet filled with an inspiring resolve. Mia worked multiple jobs to support her single mother and her 2 younger siblings, showcasing a strength that resonated with Ruth's own life's battles. As their connection flourished, Ruth felt rejuvenated. The loneliness that once consumed her began to fade. However, their friendship didn't go unnoticed. Whispers echoed around the diner, skepticism in the air. What does a billionaire want with a waitress? The judgment lingered painfully. A scandal brewed, spotlighting the rift between wealth and worth. Ruth's heart sank into turmoil as she realized how easily her intentions could be twisted by those who only saw status. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As Ruth pondered her past mistakes and fractured family ties, the weight of a looming decision pressed down on her chest. She stood on the edge, torn between hiding behind her wealth or stepping into the vulnerable light of genuine connection. Just then, news spread through the diner, a shocking revelation that rocked the community to its core. Ruth felt her heartbeat in her ears as she braced for what would come next. Would she support Mia's dreams or retreat back to the isolating embrace of privilege? The stakes had never been higher, and the fabric of their intertwined lives was about to be tested like never before. Ruth sat frozen in her corner booth as the murmurs grew louder. The diner felt smaller somehow, like the walls were closing in, suffocating her in a mix of excitement and fear. Just as she considered escaping back to the safety of her mansion, Mia approached, her face radiant yet taut with concern. "Are you okay, Ms. Ruth?" Mia asked, her eyes searching Ruth's face for reassurance. Ruth forced a smile, but it felt fragile on her lips. "I'm fine, dear. Just thinking." Mia bit her lip, her gaze darting around the diner. "They're talking about us." Ruth's heart ached. Mia's voice held a mix of hurt and disbelief, the weight of small-town judgment pressing down on her. Ruth longed to tell Mia that this connection was more significant than any idle gossip. It was a lifeline, a chance to rewrite their destinies. But the ghosts of her past danced in the air, whispering doubts. "Maybe it's time I leave," she said quietly, her confidence wavering. Mia's brow furrowed. "You can't just run away. What we have is real. You're not just some wealthy woman to me, you're a friend." The word hung in the air like an unexpected blessing. Ruth closed her eyes, feeling the warmth of Mia's sincerity envelop her. A friend. What a beautiful concept. But the diner door swung open, and in strode David, her estranged son. A sense of dread washed over Ruth as he looked around. His eyes met hers, and for a moment, time seemed to freeze. The atmosphere shifted, anxiety bubbling into the air. David was the last person she wanted to see here. "Mom!" he called out, confusion mixed with irritation etched across his face. "What are you doing here?" Mia's eyes widened, and Ruth internalized the shame of their separation. Now, here was another intersection of her two worlds. "I'm just having coffee," Ruth replied, her voice trembling. David approached, his tone sharper than she remembered. "You couldn't even drop by the house for a family dinner? You're hiding in here like a ghost." The judgment in his voice stung. Ruth felt the weight of every choice they made come crashing down on her. But before she could respond, Mia stepped forward, firm and protective. "Actually, she's been spending time with me, getting to know the people in this town. Maybe you should give her a chance." Ruth's heart soared at Mia's unexpected defense but quickly fell as David's eyebrows shot up with surprise and disbelief. "And who are you to tell me anything?" Ruth felt trapped, caught between the past and a hopeful future. The diner seemed to pause around them, customers watching the unfolding drama with wide eyes and hushed whispers. "Mia is my friend," Ruth asserted, her voice rising, trembling with a mixture of courage and fear. "And I'm tired of hiding, David. I want to be present for myself, for you, and for people like Mia who need someone to believe in them." Silence settled, the weight of her words hanging between them. It was as if she had opened a door she thought was permanently closed. Mia's hand brushed against Ruth's, an anchor in the storm of tension. And then, across the room, a voice piped up. "All right, Ruth, it's time to show us who you really are." Laughter erupted, and suddenly, the pressure shifted. Ruth met Mia's eyes, a shared understanding sparking between them. They both stood on the edge of something monumental, an embrace of vulnerability, a triumph over fear. But just as Ruth began to feel a sense of belonging, a phone buzzed on the counter, cutting through the moment. Mia glanced at it and gasped, her face pale. "It's my mother. She's in the hospital." Panic clenched Ruth's heart as she reached out to Mia. "We'll figure it out together, I promise." But as Mia rushed out of the diner, Ruth was left standing, her life once again veering down an uncharted path. Could this connection sustain them both when the world felt heavy and the stakes were climbing higher? She took a deep breath, readying herself for the storm, determined to fight for what really mattered. But would she be able to bridge these worlds before it was too late? The din of the diner faded into a distant hum as Ruth stood in the aftermath of Mia's abrupt departure. The laughter around her felt hollow, like echoes of a life she wanted to reclaim but feared she could never truly grasp. She glanced at David, his expression a swirl of confusion and frustration. The weight of their troubled history hung heavy between them, as palpable as the cheer of the other customers. "Mom," he said, his voice softer but still edged with exasperation. "You can't just run away when things get tough. That's what you've always done." The accusation cut deep, churning up memories of strained conversations and unspoken words. "I'm not running away, David," she replied, her voice steadier than she felt. "I'm fighting for my life, for a chance to be someone who is not defined by my past." David turned his gaze away, scanning the room as if searching for an exit. This wasn't just a confrontation, it was a reckoning. Ruth could see the cracks in the armor he wore, a facade of anger that hid his hurt. Do you even care about how I feel? He shot back, pain flickering in his eyes. You disappeared just when I needed you. Now, you're here with someone like her? Ruth's heart sank. Mia is she started but stopped, the words caught in her throat. Mia was much more than just a friend, she was a beacon of hope in Ruth's chaotic world. Mia is someone who encourages me to open up, to be brave. Something I've struggled with. I thought you'd understand. David took a step back, his expression unreadable. Understand? You were never around to be understood. Ruth felt a pang of regret, hitting her like a freight train. Each moment they lost replayed in her mind, birthdays missed, holidays spent detached, memories shared only in text messages. The diner felt like a stage, and the whispers thickened, wrapping around Ruth as she stood vulnerable before the gaze of her son. I'm sorry, David. I am. I've made mistakes, but I'm trying to change. Suddenly, the diner door swung open once more, and in rushed Mia, her face flushed and breathless. I'm so sorry. My mom, she faltered, taking in the scene. Ruth's heart raced as she glanced between Mia and David. The tension in the air crackled with unspoken words. Mia, are you all right? Ruth asked, concern washing over her. Mia nodded, but the worry in her eyes didn't fade. She's stable, but I need to go back. Then let us go together, Ruth urged, moving closer to Mia, feeling a bond pulling them together even in chaos. No. David interjected, his voice rising. You can't just run off again. You owe me an explanation. The diner felt like it was closing in again, but this time, Ruth steeled herself against the pressure. I owe you more than explanations, David. I owe you my presence, my support. With determination, she turned back to Mia. I'll be right by your side. No matter what. Mia's expression softened, gratitude shining through her concern. Thank you, Ruth. I didn't expect you to care so much. Ruth met Mia's gaze, feeling a spark of clarity. I need you too, Mia. More than you know. A hush fell over the diner. The previous laughter seemed replaced by a palpable sense of hope. Fine, I'll come, David grudgingly muttered, but only because I want to know what's going on. Mia smiled, a flicker of relief in her eyes, but Ruth knew this was just the beginning. The path ahead was uncertain and fraught with challenges. The moment felt fragile, teetering on the brink of possibility. Could she finally mend things with David while holding on to this newfound connection with Mia? Ruth took in a deep breath, ready to step into the unknown. Just as she turned to leave, her phone buzzed in her pocket. Checking the screen, she saw a call from her attorney, one she had been avoiding. Her heart raced. What did this call entail? This was one more layer in a life already bursting at the seams. Mia and David waited, their eyes on her, waiting for her next move. Would she be ready to face the truth, even if it changed everything? As the weight of her decision settled, Ruth stood on the precipice of change. Each heartbeat echoing a silent question, would she rise to the challenge, or would she falter once more? Ruth's fingers trembled as she stared at her phone. The name on the screen felt like a stone clutched tightly in her throat. Her attorney had been a distant reminder of the troubles she tried so hard to outrun. Each message, each call, dragged her back to realities she wished she could escape. Are you going to answer that? David's voice broke through her thoughts, sharp and edged with impatience. She looked up, searching for the right words. It's my attorney. Then why not just pick up? You can't keep running from this. His eyes were fierce, demanding. Ruth took a step back, the diner swirling around her. The laughter, the smells, the clinking of cutlery, they all faded. She felt suspended in air, knee-deep in her own fears, as if every choice led her further from solid ground. It's complicated, David, she whispered. Life is complicated. But ignoring it doesn't make it go away, he replied, the hurt still raw in his voice. Mia stood to her side, an unwavering presence. You can do this, Ruth. It's time to face it. Something in Mia's tone sparked an ember of determination deep within her. Ruth inhaled slowly, channeling the warmth of their connection. This was her chance not just for her, but for David too. With shaky hands, she tapped on the screen, and the call connected. The attorney's voice, crisp and businesslike, filled her ear. Ruth, I've been trying to reach you. We need to discuss the upcoming hearing for your case. Her heart raced, reminding her how close to disaster she often felt. Okay, she said, summoning courage. Time is of the essence. We could be facing significant backlash if we don't act quickly, especially regarding the assets. As he spoke, the weight of her past loomed larger. Each word was a reminder of sleepless nights spent crafting excuses to avoid this very conversation. Ruth's thoughts darted like the shadows across the diner walls. Memories of why she left, of who she hurt, flooded in. Ruth? The attorney's voice pulled her back. Are you still there? Yes, I'm here, she replied, her voice strengthened by Mia's grounding warmth. I will do whatever it takes to face this. Good. I'll prepare the documents and we can discuss the next steps. Ruth hung up, her pulse still racing. She felt lighter yet heavier, as if she had a foot on each side of a threshold. What did they say? David asked, his eyes wide, nervously searching for assurance. I have to confront my past, and face my decisions, Ruth admitted, swallowing the lump in her throat. There was a pause, a shared breath sighing through the three of them. David stepped closer, and for the briefest moment, a flicker of understanding passed between them. Maybe we can do this together, he said, vulnerable like she had never seen him. With a tentative nod, Ruth felt hope stir within her. Yes, together. Mia stepped forward, her hand brushing against Ruth's. Whatever follows, you're not alone. The warmth of Mia's touch, David's acknowledgement, it felt like the first rays of dawn after a long night. But as they prepared to leave, silence wrapped around them like a heavy blanket. The diner door swung open, and an unexpected figure appeared, Ruth's estranged sister, the last person she ever expected to face. Ruth, her sister called out, voice trembling, as they locked eyes across the room. The moment hung in the air, heavy with years of resentment and unspoken apologies. Would this encounter unravel the fragile connections Ruth had begun to build, or could it lead to the closure she desperately sought? Ruth's breath caught in her throat. The sudden appearance of her sister, Helen, was a ground-shaking jolt back to a past she had spent so long trying to forget. Memories flooded her mind, arguments that turned into screaming matches, family dinners filled with tension, and the day Ruth packed her bags, vowing never to look back. What are you doing here? Ruth's voice was steadier than she felt, but her heart raced, pounding like a drum in her ears. Helen's eyes shimmered with a cocktail of panic and desperation. I came to talk. I didn't think I'd find you here. Not like this. David and Mia exchanged glances, the palpable tension thickening the air. Ruth felt their protective energy, but everything within her screamed to escape this confrontation. Talk? She echoed, anger spiking. After years of silence, you just think it's okay to show up and say that? You don't get to choose when you want to be part of my life. Helen flinched, her shoulders slumping. Ruth, please. I know I messed up. I should have reached out sooner. She paused, swallowing the lump in her throat. I'm scared of what might happen. I need to explain. Explain what? That you chose everyone else over me? That you turned your back when I needed you the most? Ruth could feel fire prickling behind her eyes. She had fought hard to mend the wounds of her past. Helen's return could only mean more hurt. It wasn't like that. I thought the distance would help you, help both of us find peace, Helen pleaded. But I see now that it only made things worse. Can you give me a chance to make it right? Why would I trust you? Ruth shot back, her voice a mix of defiance and pain. Because I'm your sister. And I know what I lost. Helen stepped forward, her hands clasped as if in prayer. I'm here to help you face this, Ruth. I want to be there for you. Just let me try. Ruth's breath shortened, torn between the desire to keep the walls high and an aching glimmer of hope. It felt foolish to want to reach out, yet something deep inside urged her to listen. I have to face my past, Helen, Ruth said slowly, feeling the weight of her new resolve. It's hard enough without adding you to the mix. I understand. But I can help. I can be part of your journey. You don't have to do it all alone. Mia slipped her hand around Ruth's, grounding her, while David stepped up, his expression softening. Whatever you decide, we're here for you. Just know that. Ruth's eyes darted between them, then back to her sister. Helen's sincerity cut through the anger and hesitance that had wrapped itself around her heart. I don't know, Ruth whispered, her voice barely audible above the diner's hum. Just give me a chance, Helen said, hope dancing in her eyes. Meet me tomorrow, as if nothing's changed. No judgment. Just two sisters trying to find their way. Ruth felt a wave of uncertainty crashing against the shore of her emotions. Could she really open up old wounds to someone who had hurt her so deeply? But the longing for connection, for healing, tugged at her heart. Okay, she replied finally, unsure of the future but tantalized by the possibility of reconciliation. Tomorrow. As Helen nodded, a flicker of something unnameable passed between them, perhaps an inkling of forgiveness, or at least a chance to understand one another again, but just as that fragile moment seemed to solidify, the diner door swung open once more, and a figure stepped inside, drawing everyone's attention. Mom's looking for you, Ruth. It was her brother, standing there with a look that could freeze time, bringing all her uncertainties crashing back into reality. Ruth's heart dropped. How much had her family already unraveled while she was clinging to the hope of moving forward? What would this reunion mean for her journey? Ruth's gaze locked onto her brother's face, the familiar angles of his jaw and the furrow deepening between his eyebrows telling her everything. Fear skittered across her mind. What did he want? Was this about Helen? Matt, she breathed, suddenly overwhelmed. He moved closer, urgency in his stance. I know this is a lot, but Mom's been trying to reach you. And he hesitated, as if searching for the right words. You should probably be prepared for what she has to say. Ruth felt the room spinning, the weight of the world crashing on her shoulders. She looked back to Helen, who was now visibly shaken, then towards David and Mia. They stood nearby, their expressions a mixture of empathy and cautious concern. What is it? What does Mom want? Ruth's voice cracked. A cold knot settled in her stomach. Just, sit down first. Please. Matt nodded toward a booth, and Ruth followed, her legs feeling like lead. As she slid onto the vinyl seat, the cool surface distracted her for a moment, a whisper of comfort in the brewing storm. Helen sat opposite her, a myriad of emotions playing across her face. Fear, doubt, longing, all swirling in an unrecognizable dance. Ruth could see her sister was just as fragile as she was. Ruth, Matt said, leaning in closer. It's about Dad. The name hit her like a punch to the gut. What about him? Matt swallowed hard, hesitating as if weighing each syllable. He's in the hospital. It's serious. Time seemed to stall, the words hanging in the air. Her heartbeat thundered in her ears, drowning out the chatter of the diner, the clinking of silverware, and the sizzle from the kitchen. Memories of her father rushed back, fishing trips, his laughter at family barbecues, the man she hadn't spoken to in years. Why haven't you told me sooner? Ruth demanded quietly, struggling to keep her voice steady. How long has he been in the hospital? Why didn't Mom call me? Matt's eyes softened with guilt. She didn't want to alarm you. You've been through so much. But I thought you should know. It's time to come back home, Ruth. For all of us. She shook her head. A whirlwind of emotions ripped through her: guilt for not being there, anger at her family for keeping secrets, and a sliver of longing to reconnect. But then there was fear. Fear of falling back into the same patterns, the same arguments. Mom. Ruth's voice faltered. Does she know I was seeing Helen? She doesn't know much of what's been going on with you, Matt admitted. Just that you're healing. Ruth looked away, choking down a flood of conflicting feelings. She didn't want to relive her past. She wanted to run from it. But now, the reality of her father's situation loomed over her like a heavy storm cloud. Ruth, you can't keep running, Helen spoke cautiously, as if reaching out to her through the fog. You need to face this. You can't avoid him forever. There it was, the abrasive truth. Was she really ready to confront a man she had distanced herself from? Or could this be her chance to heal not just her own wounds, but those of her family? As the weight of the decision pressed on her shoulders, the door of the diner swung open again, this time with a gust of wind that seemed to announce an even bigger change. Ruth! An unfamiliar voice yelled across the room. A woman with wild hair and frantic energy rushed through the entrance, panic etched on her features. We need to talk. It's urgent. Ruth's heart raced. What could possibly be so urgent? Everything inside her demanded she turn away, to shut it all out, but she felt herself drawn into the chaos. Just as she thought she was ready to face one reality, another storm was brewing. What new revelations awaited? Ruth's eyes darted from the stranger to her brother. Matt's expression was confused, mirroring her own. The woman stormed over, her shoes squeaking on the diner's tiled floor as if she had traveled from another world with a very different gravity. Ruth, right? She paused, eyes frantic but seeking. I'm Julie, from the hospital. Ruth's breath caught. What about my dad? Julie drew closer, lowering her voice, but the urgency couldn't be masked. I'm sorry to interrupt your meal, but your father needs you, and it's time sensitive. He asked for you specifically. Ruth gripped the edge of the table, her knuckles paling. What do you mean? The woman's gaze softened, pity flickering across her features. He's been asking for you since he woke up. He's stable, but there's a lot to address. You know how things can go. Ruth's heart thudded in her chest. The first question fought to be spoken, but another one clawed its way to the surface. What kind of address? It's about family, Julie said, hesitation in her tone. And some secrets he thinks you deserve to know. He doesn't have much time. Time. The word hung heavy like a thick fog, sinking Ruth deeper into uncertainty. She could feel all eyes on her, Matt with that protective tilt of his head, Helen's wounded stance, even David and Mia shifting anxiously. This was more than she had anticipated. She had come in search of solace now. It seemed she was on the brink of a confession that threatened to unravel her. Mom want me there, Ruth finally muttered, shame creeping in. She's the reason I left. Your father doesn't care about that right now, Julie urged, voice firm yet compassionate. He wants to reconcile whatever that means to him. But he needs you to be there. You've got to come home. Her heart pounded, each beat drumming loudly against the rising walls of her anxiety. Could she really do this? Could she face her father after so many years? Afraid to break the fragile truce she had built with herself, Matt squeezed her hand across the table. You can't run anymore, Ruth. He needs you. It's not about Mom or what happened before. It's about connecting with Dad. Ruth's vision blurred slightly as she took in the chaos around her, the clatter of dishes fading into the background. She thought of those fishing trips, of laughter echoing among the waves, of the almost unattainable warmth of family love. memories intermingled with sharp pangs of regret. Julie noticed the turmoil and decided to add, and maybe it's time for you to confront those feelings. For your dad, too. A ripple of warmth swept through her at the suggestion. Was it unreasonable to hope for even the faintest chance of healing? Before Ruth could respond, the diner's atmosphere shifted again. Conversations that had previously felt so mundane now buzzed heavily with tension. What if I'm not ready? Ruth finally said, vulnerability coating her voice. Julie stepped forward. You will never be ready unless you take that first step. The choice is ultimately yours, but just know, you won't be alone. The words hung in the air, a lifeline dangling before her. Courage mixed with fear simmered in her chest. It wasn't just about her father. It was about her. As she looked to Helen, she saw a flicker of encouragement in her sister's eyes. It made her pulse race with hope. Okay, Ruth whispered, steeling herself for the decision. I'll go. But if I do, I need all of you to come with me. Everyone nodded solemnly, the gravity of the moment nestling into their hearts. Together, they had faced so much. Why stop now? But as her resolve solidified, the diner door swung open again, revealing an unexpected face, one that sent a shockwave through the group. Ruth, I just heard. What is going on? A man she hadn't spoken to in years stepped inside, a haunting familiarity filling the room. What is he doing here? Ruth whispered, surprise and fear merging as the shadows of her past began to swirl around her once more. Could the past truly stay buried, or would it rise to meet her again as she stood on the precipice of change? Ruth's breath hitched in her throat as her eyes locked onto the man who had just entered. Rick. The name was like a ghost in her mind, conjuring memories of laughter mixed with bitter moments. The years melted away, pulling her back to days when he'd been more than just a figure in her past. He'd been her friend, her confidant. But that all changed with the shift in the family dynamics. That he looked older, graver, lined with experiences she knew nothing about. But his eyes still sparkled with that familiar warmth. They locked eyes, and for a split second, the noise of the diner faded. It was just the two of them, standing on the edge of untold stories. What are you doing here? She whispered, almost too afraid to speak louder. I heard you were back in town and I had to see you. I didn't know about your dad, he said, a mix of concern and nostalgia etched on his face. I thought maybe we could talk. She felt the weight of her family's glances. They were all watching, waiting. Ruth's heart raced. It was like opening a lid on an old, dusty box filled with memories, some cherished, others rotten. Julie shifted uneasily, sensing the electric tension. Ruth, we have to go. Your father. I need a minute, Ruth interrupted, her voice stronger than she felt. Matt's hand lingered on the table, seeking to keep her grounded. Helen settled back, quiet but observant. David and Mia exchanged glances, sensing the uncharted waters ahead. Rick stepped closer, breaking the invisible barrier. It feels like a lifetime since we last spoke. I know things have changed. I just wanted you to know I'm here for you, if you need me. Need him? Was that even possible? She had buried so many feelings when they had parted ways. He had been tangled in the same mess that made her leave. But now, the space between them felt charged, like a spark could ignite an old flame. What do we even say to each other? Ruth asked, her voice barely above a whisper. She felt exposed, standing there with her past unfolding at her feet. Whatever you want, he replied, sincerity written across his brow. I want to understand you. The things you've faced. Just then, a flicker of movement drew Ruth's attention away from him. Julie was shifting her weight nervously, and Ruth suddenly remembered why they were all here. Her father was waiting. This was bigger than her unresolved feelings. Were they even worth addressing right now? I can't do this, she exclaimed, backing away from the moment. I need to focus on my dad. Ruth, wait. Rick called after her, stepping forward, but she was already moving, urgency propelling her towards the door. Each step was weighted with uncertainty, yet as she turned, she found herself glancing back at him. His expression was a mix of concern and regret, emotions she hadn't anticipated. "I'll see you after," she murmured, the promise hanging delicately in the air. Was she really going to see him again? Or would this be another thread tied off in her past? Julie quickly led the way as Ruth followed, her mind swirling faster than her heart raced. The memory of Rick's eyes lingered, bouncing against her thoughts, merging with those of her father's impending revelations. As they exited the diner, the weight of the moment crashed over her. The world outside was alive with sounds and colors, a stark contrast to the turmoil in her heart. She could almost feel the walls of her childhood home pressing down on her, pressing down on the secrets that had long needed to be unearthed. What would she find in the shadows of the past? With every step away from the diner, she felt the complexities intensify. Would there be healing for her dad? For her? And for the connection she once had with Rick? Just as they reached the parked car, Ruth paused, glancing anxiously back at the diner, her heart a pendulum swinging between fear and lingering hope. But before she could take another breath, a sudden shout erupted from behind. Rick was calling out again. "Ruth! What if your dad isn't the only one with secrets?" Those words hung in the air like a dark cloud, and she felt an intense knot form in her stomach. What new thread had he just pulled at? What more lay hidden beneath layers of untold stories? Would the answers she sought bring more light, or would they only deepen the shadows? Ruth froze, her breath caught between her lungs and the uncertainty swirling in her mind. The churn of her emotions mirrored the rattle of the diner sliding door behind her, swinging closed, leaving her in a world of muffled sounds. Rick's words gripped her tighter than the chilly air outside. Did he really mean that? Rick stepped closer, urgency in his eyes. "I didn't mean to," but she shook her head, her voice sharper than she intended. "No. You can't just drop that and expect me not to freak out." Panic bubbled inside her as memories of turbulent family dinners and whispered secrets surfaced like ghosts. She could feel her heartbeat quickening, a wild drum echoing in her ears. The others waited by the car, glancing back expectantly, unaware of the storm brewing just a few feet away. Ruth's instinct told her to keep running, to escape those stirring memories, but something held her in place. Rick's gaze, steady and earnest. "What if your dad has kept something from you? Something that could change everything?" He pressed, his voice low and sincere. "You deserve to know the truth." Ruth felt her resolve teeter. A part of her was terrified to dig deep, to rattle the skeletons locked in her family's closet. But another part of her, the one that wanted answers, was alive, shimmering with energy. It pulled at her, asking, pleading for release. "What are you saying?" She replied, keeping her tone softer, trying to manage the whirlwind inside her. "What truth? What secrets? I can't do this right now. My dad," her words faltered. She didn't know what to believe. Rick took a deep breath, and for a moment, she saw the boy she once knew. "Just think about it. It might not only be him. Maybe there's more to the story, about us too." He glanced back toward the car, where her family watched, apprehensive and silent. A wave of anguish washed over her. Everything felt intertwined: her father's illness, her return, and now this inevitable revisit of her past with Rick. "Us?" she echoed, her heart skittering. "What do you mean, about us?" She thought of their summers spent on laughter and secrets shared. What had happened to the friendship they had? "Things changed between us when everything went sideways with your family. You left before we could even talk about it. But I've been here waiting." A flicker of hope sparked in Ruth, though it felt quickly doused by doubt. Why now? After all this time? She scanned his face, searching for the sincerity she had once known. "Because now's the time. You're back. Your dad," he gestured vaguely, frustration etched across his features. "What if talking to him might mean uncovering things you're not ready to hear?" But it can also mean closure for you. For both of us. Ruth looked down at her shoes, the gravel underfoot digging into her thoughts. The weight of his words pressed against her heart, and though they were painful, she had to admit they held truth, a truth that was long overdue. Taking a deep breath, she finally found her voice steady again. What if I don't want what you're suggesting? What if it tears everything apart? Then at least you'll know, he said softly, stepping closer again until she felt the warmth radiating from him. It's your choice, but wouldn't you rather know than spend the rest of your life wondering? Caught between heartache and hope, Ruth felt a decision inching closer. Just as the clouds above seemed to break open for a moment of clarity, a thought struck her. Rick, if I look for answers, if I dig into my dad's past, what if what I find changes everything we ever knew? This is the moment we find out, he said, the resolve in his tone igniting something deep within her chest. She locked eyes with him, determination gathering strength. Okay. Let us do it. But only if you promise to be there with me, she said, the fear still lingering but quelling under the weight of resolution. Always, he replied, a small smile cracking through the tension. With her heart pounding louder than ever, she turned back toward the parked car, ready to confront the unknown. Little did she know the shocking revelations awaiting her inside the walls of her childhood home. What if their discoveries unraveled everything she thought she knew? What if the truth was more daunting than the secrets themselves? Ruth stood still for a moment, her pulse racing as she faced her past, Rick, her family, the big unknown that awaited back in her childhood home. The diner, once a place of warmth and laughter, now felt suffocating with emotions and expectations. She glanced back at Rick. His gaze was steady, unyielding, promise hanging in the air between them like a lifeline. Are you ready? He asked. His voice slipped under her skin, igniting the courage she thought was buried under years of regret. I have to be, she whispered, taken by a sudden weight of resolve. This was her moment, not just for closure, but for rebirth, for rewriting her story. She had spent too long running away from ghosts. Now, it was time to face them head-on. Together, they stepped toward the car, where her family waited. Each footfall felt heavier and yet lighter, the complexity of her life intertwining before her. Memories of childhood flashed through her mind, the echoes of laughter and the screams of late-night conflicts, holidays fraught with tension, love mixed with pain. As she slid into the back seat, feeling the warmth of her family around her, her heart began to settle. David nodded, a silent show of support. Mia's reassuring squeeze was a reminder that she was not alone. Ruth closed her eyes, inhaling the scent of hope mingling with uncertainty. Whatever happens, we'll face it together, she said, breaking the silence. Matt glanced at her, a cautious smile forming. That's right. We're all in this. Ruth felt a spark ignite within her. The lingering distance between her and David began to close. Let us go home, she said, her voice steadying with determination. The car ride felt like a journey through uncharted waters, each block closer stirring a whirlwind of emotions. As they pulled up in front of her childhood home, a deep breath caught in Ruth's chest. The house was just as she remembered: faded paint, overgrown weeds, the creak of the porch that seemed to echo her hesitation. They stepped out, the sun setting behind them, casting long shadows across familiar territory. Each step up to the door felt monumental. Ruth knocked lightly but firm. The air around them thickened with anticipation, the weight of unspoken words hanging heavy. Ruth! Her mother's voice echoed from within. The door swung open, revealing her mother's tear-streaked face. You came. It wasn't just words, it was a life raft tossed into turbulent waters. As much as she had feared this moment, Ruth felt the tug of familial bonds pulling her closer. Is he? Ruth began, her voice faltering under the rush of emotions. Come in, her mother said gently, stepping aside. Inside, the familiar scent of home enveloped her, memories cascading around her like a tidal wave. Her father sat on the couch, frail yet somehow radiant, the fabric of their shared history woven through the air. Dad, his gaze lifted. Time seemed to stop as their eyes locked. Years away melted in seconds. He looked older, the lines on his face telling stories of battles fought in silence. Ruth, you're here, he said, voice soft yet filled with urgency. I've been waiting. She felt the crackle of emotions: relief, fear, love, and yearning all at once. As she stepped closer, something broke inside of her. I'm sorry, Dad. For being away. For everything. Tears brimmed in his eyes. It's okay. We have time now. Time to talk. Ruth knelt before him, and for the first time in years, all barriers slipped away. I need to know. I need to know about the things we never talked about. The secrets that kept us apart. As he began to speak, each word laid bare their past. As the truth flowed, a sense of liberation swept through Ruth. The weight she had carried for years began to lift piece by piece. She felt anew. Her family surrounded her in that small living room, united, their shared history washing over them, intertwining their lives once more. With each revelation, each spoken truth, healing began to seep into the cracks left by years of silence. Hours passed as they relearned each other, laughter breaking through the tears. As the dark enveloped the room outside, there was light within. Connections rekindled. As they finally settled, a stillness filled the air, echoing of hope. Ruth felt complete, no longer defined by shadows of the past but embraced by the warmth of unity. We can do this, she said, looking at her family, her voice full of strength. That's right, Matt chimed in, breaking the tension with warmth. With a newfound sense of belonging, Ruth realized this wasn't just about healing her father or facing her past. It was about creating a stronger future together. And somewhere in the back of her mind, a spark ignited at the thought of Rick. Would he still be waiting for her as she ventured into this new chapter? Could their bonds be reimagined, rekindled under the embrace of forgiveness? As the night of revelations drew to a close, Ruth's heart swelled with anticipation. Life was full of uncertainties, but this was the moment she had been waiting for, a chance to create something beautiful from the fragments of history. Outside, the stars began to shine in the velvet sky, flickering hopes illuminating the darkness. She would not step back into the shadows again. From here on out, she would move forward, entwined with family, carrying the light of possibility into every new dawn. And as she settled into that swirl of warmth, she made a silent promise to embrace both the truth and the transformation that awaited. Now it was time to live it, and you, yes you. This is the moment to show your support. Subscribe immediately to our channel to not miss the next exclusive stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and help more people experience this journey of transformation. Comment below your thoughts, reactions, and feelings about this emotional ending. We want to hear from you. And don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Remember, only true fans understand the importance of supporting this channel through your actions. You need to show that support now.